everything's a moving puzzle piece, essentially. And so I've learned a lot of things, and I've probably, done things that lost money that I would never do again. But I think you've got to learn those, and you got to just keep going to get your business to the place that you want it to be.
Welcome to Download Success, a podcast where we sit down with business owners and entrepreneurs and discuss life, strategies to manifest success, and the ugly truth about running a business.
Are you ready? Yo, yo, yo. I'm Chris. I'll be your host for Download Success. I'm also a small business owner here in the central Kentucky area. Cornerstone Masons, your go-to design and masonry company.
And I'm Phil, your co-host and executive producer of Download Success. But in real life, I run a full-service custom web design company in Lexington, Kentucky, Click Factory.
Are you ready?
Chris, I was thinking there's really only two frames of mind sometimes. You've got either street smarts or book smarts. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Or a combination of the two, right? This is what I've learned, from being brought up in the University of the Streets.
University of the World.
University of the World is that, these life lessons that we get to learn throughout life, if we're open-minded and willing enough to receive and discern when and where they come from, we can apply them later on in the future. And, I went to college in 2016. When I got there, what I understood was I had a little bit more knowledge than what I had originally anticipated going into this deal. And ultimately, it was learned through experience in life.
Mm-hmm. And see, I was the opposite. I was learned from books, from school. And so when I started my own business, there's a lot I don't know. I don't know how to do this. I do, but I don't.
It looks good on paper.
Right. I'm not comfortable. Maybe that's the better word. I do know how to do it. I'm just not comfortable doing it. And then from the other standpoint, you got street smart. You do know how to do it, but again, you're not comfortable.
Well, I think that there's a formula in either aspect of that, right? Whether you're coming from a street perspective or a book perspective, there's a format that should be followed. There's guidelines that kind of fall into place. With the book smarts, numbers don't lie. Things should work out the way that it says it will on paper. That's not necessarily true. But you've got a better chance of it working out if you combine the two, right? If you've got street and book, what better recipe could you have for success?
I love it. Well, we're going to chat with Lauren Geiger, who's going to talk a little bit about Street Smart and Book Smart and how she started her business from the ground up.
Her three businesses.
Yeah. Sorry, Lauren. Anyway, everybody, welcome Lauren Geiger of Bluegrass Builders and Remodel.
Hey, Lauren.
Hey, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me.
For sure. No, thanks for being here. We were talking a little bit before we got started about just a little bit about how I grew up, and you said that you could relate to that, being raised in Louisville area.
Yeah, for sure. So just a little bit about me. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, the South End. We're South End proud down there. So I grew up there. I moved to Lexington in 2010, where I started at the University of Kentucky,
Nice.
And lived here ever since.
Nice. And what did you study when you went into
After 4 years, I decided to study architecture. I wanted to always be Aaron Andrews. I wanted to do sports. I love football and go Cats, woo woo.
Go Cats.
So I wanted to do that. And then, of course, I fell into like the marketing, things like that, just because I really didn't know where I wanted to go. It wasn't until I kind of wanted to not waste any more money of not knowing what I wanted to do, that I found architecture. So I actually started that at BCTC, and I ended up loving it. I found an internship with a local builder, and kind of did a little bit of everything there. So I worked with him for about 4 or 5 years, something like that, and ended up loving just like the project management side of it versus like the drawing the plan side of it. So I really don't do any architecture anymore. I kind of hired that out, but it helped me a lot to read plans and understand what's going on.
Which is necessary in the construction industry.
Absolutely.
Period.
Yeah. I'm super glad that I had that.
Well, good. We've typically what we do, guys, is we've got a questionnaire that we'll send out before our guests come on, and they'll answer those. So I'd like to go back over some of these with you, Lauren, and
sure.
Just get some feedback from you.
Yeah.
It says define success, and we get a lot of surface level stuff on this, but you've defined it as freedom. What does that mean to you? Success in general.
So for me, success is a lot more than about the money. I do, successful people do have a great source of income, things like that. But for me, it was always getting out of that like 9 to 5, 8 to 4, type of lifestyle, and being able to go do things when I want. I don't have to ask for permission to go on a vacation. I don't need time off. Like, it's kind of just building and being able to operate the way that you want to in your life. If we need to take off early, go to the doctor, it's just things like that. Like, to me, that is success. Also, in a business term, success to me is also having your company operate without you. Mm-hmm. So building that up to where your employees, people that you've brought on to your business, I mean, they don't notice when you're not there, mm-hmm. because you've trained them so well, and they're so proud to work in your business. Mm-hmm. So that's success for me. And of course, the money comes with that, with financial freedom, but I think building those things up first is super important.
Just a good infrastructure to be able to allow. Yeah,
absolutely.
You don't own just one company; you own 3. You've got your hands in quite a bit of stuff, right? You want to tell us a little bit about those? So
I own All Around Roofing. I've got partners in that with me. So we are a 60-40 split on that. So I'm the 60. And then
Of course you are, Lauren.
And then I own Lauren's Properties is solely me, as well as Bluegrass Builders. I also have another business that it's for flip houses and things like that. I'm 50-50. It's Lauren Geiger. Mm-hmm. So my friend Laura and I, we do flips like that together sometimes. Then the Lauren's Properties does the same. It's just more of like 100% me. So I guess you can consider it 4.
Yeah,
right?
Nice.
So, yeah.
I like that one of your partners is another female, and I know that you had mentioned in here that you've come in and been successful in a male-dominated industry. You want to elaborate on that just a little bit? I've got my own opinion about
of course.
Not that, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So when I first got started, I really didn't think of it as, oh, these people are going to shut me down because I'm a female, right? It was just more of like, this is what I love to do, and this is what I want to do. But the more I got into it, the more I realized that some people don't love what I do, mm-hmm. Because I am a female. So I tend to go a little bit both ways here. I can either show up at a client's house and they're like, hell yeah, you're a girl in this business. Like, we totally respect you. Or I can show up at a client's house for a meeting and they're like, when's your boss going to be here? I mean, I get like both sides of it. So it's really weird. And I never really noticed that people felt that way until I had started it on my own. So it was definitely eye-opening for me to see that, like, it's sadly, like, that's where we still are, and you would think that by 2022 people would kind of, not think that way, but it's weird.
But you've come in and killed the game, right? So you've set the standard for women. I get to watch you on social media and just being able to come in and execute. You know what I mean? So not only do you show up, but you follow through with what you say you're going to do, and ultimately the end result speaks for itself. Yeah. And it's weird because I never knew how much of an influence I made as a female. But I do get females that reach out to me sometimes on Facebook, and they're just like, I love what you do. Thank you so much for showing me that I can do this too. I had a conversation with a girl, another female in business also the other day. And I mean, she brought me to tears because I didn't realize what an impact I had made on her. Yeah. And I mean, she pretty much told me that if it wasn't for her following me, she would have never started her own business.
And that's crazy to me. I mean, it's awesome. And I just never realized what type of impact I made on people.
Good for you.
Wow.
Yeah. It was really, I mean, I bawled my eyes out when she was telling me that, because I was just like, oh my God, like really, you know, because days get hard and it's like, you just want to give up. And then when you have somebody tell you that, you're just like, hell yeah. I'm not going to give up.
This makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. We get to go back in, and I'm a second chance type of company. I like to work with guys and give them second chances where they ultimately wouldn't get a chance somewhere else.
Yeah.
And just to share a little bit about me, I'm a convicted felon, so for me to go out and try to get a job at McDonald's, I can't.
Yeah.
Walmart's not going to hire me, but I can go out and run a multi-million-dollar company.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's decisions that I get to make out of here and to show up and show out. And not only that, I get to, like what you were talking about, and say, hey, if I can do it, I promise you can do it.
Yeah.
Philip, you and I was talking about this surface level stuff about what people whine and complain about, right?
Yep.
I'm like, shut up.
Yeah.
You don't even have a clue. Be grateful.
Yeah.
So I get that.
Yeah.
You know, I do, just to be able to make an impact in somebody else's life and say, hey, you know what? If I can do it, you can too.
Yeah. And it's so easy to place yourself as a victim. I mean, you know, it's because of this person that I didn't do this. Like, I'm over, like, I'm done with that. Yeah. You know, like, I'm going to do what I want to do the way I'm going to do it because I can, you know, and absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Anybody can do it.
Mm-hmm. It says businesses have their ups and downs, Lauren. Individuals do too. We just talked a little bit about that. Tell us your strategies for persevering through difficult times to keep from giving up.
So one thing I always like to remember, I kind of have like affirmations kind of in the morning, especially Mondays when it's like, God, Mondays suck. They are always going to suck, you know? And so I always tell myself, you know, if it wasn't hard, it won't be worth it. Mm-hmm. And so that's really important to me as far as like just trying to deal with the ups and downs. Also, there are some days, I know we talked about, like, I wanted to get out of the 9 to 5, mm-hmm. but there's some days where I'm like, man, I want to get back in the 9 to 5. Like, I want to be able to.
Really?
I mean, for a split second. Okay. There's some times where I'm just like, God, I'm drained. And I'll kind of tell you how I got out of that scenario in a second. But there was times where I'm like, man, I envy these people who can leave work at 5 o'clock and their phone doesn't because their phone doesn't ring. Nobody's calling them. They can go enjoy, not worry about anything until they get back to work.
Turn their mind off. They don't have to think about work.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's like, man, that's another freedom in itself, for sure. You know, in your mind. But at the same time, I have grown to just appreciate like what I've built for people, and, you know, let alone like workers that work for me, employees that work under me. It's like I'm providing for their family, and that's super important. But also, like, you know, I take care of them, mm-hmm. and to me, it's like that is so fulfilling to know that, you know, payroll sucks, but it's like writing all these people their checks. It's like, man, like, you know, we're taking care of them this week. They're doing that. Right. Yep. I'm get to do this for people, mm-hmm. and people want to do that for me. Mm-hmm. You know, it's an exchange. So I try to look at that. Also, I mean, I've learned a lot. I've made a lot of mistakes, mm-hmm. and I think the biggest thing for me is to figure out how to adjust to the mistakes that you make. I mean, when you go from, you know, basically just starting your business to growing it, it gets out of control sometimes, you know, where you don't know. Everything's a moving puzzle piece, essentially. And so I've learned a lot of things, and I've probably, you know, done things that lost money that I would never do again. But I think you've got to learn those, and you got to just keep going to get your business to the place that you want it to be, mm-hmm. to satisfy your clients.
I like it. I like it a lot. I was talking to Mackenzie, my daughter, mm-hmm.
The
other day about just life lessons, and she just signed up. She just started back to college.
Yeah.
And she's got to pay a tuition.
Yeah.
Everybody does, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I went into telling her about this university that I belong to out here in the world, mm-hmm. That sometimes costs me several tens of thousands of dollars, as I can relate to you on just making mistakes, which I try to be optimistic mm-hmm. in anything that I go through, and those lessons, those mistakes were necessary for growth and where God
Right.
ultimately is leading me.
Yeah.
Because this infrastructure has to be in place, not just
Right.
out here in the physical, but internally.
Yeah.
For me to be able to deal with people.
Yeah.
For me to be able to be a good steward of what I've been given.
Yeah.
And to be able to reach back down and help somebody else. Because if I don't have all that in place, then I'm not going to be in a position to be of much service to anybody
Yeah.
else anyway.
And knowing that you're going to lose money on a job because you messed up, but you still show up and you do right by the client, that's huge.
That is huge.
I mean, and you're very like that sets you apart from a lot of other companies out there. It really does. But yeah, the good lessons are always expensive.
They're expensive, right?
Man, they are.
What if we can get a student loan
if I could
for
get
this?
if I could get that money back on those lessons, God, we'd be in perfect shape.
Yeah. It says, what are some of your unique strategies for acquiring and retaining customers? And I took a side note over here because I'm a really, it's got a whole depth and weight for me.
Yeah.
It just does, conversation in general. So this is what I've learned on this last project that we just took a big hit on. And I can point my finger at somebody else all I want to. There's 3 pointing back at me. There was decisions that I know to make.
Yeah.
I'll continue to repeat these same tests until I pass them. So if I don't have my paperwork in line, and wording is everything, and it sucks that I can do a job on a handshake because I'm going to follow through with my end of the deal. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the customer will. So why can't businesses be done with a handshake anymore?
You know, that's funny that you say that, is because the more work that you do for people, when you start a business, you think everybody's wonderful, all of your clients, and you think, oh, we get along great, and they're never going to not pay me or whatever, and vice versa. But when money is involved in anything, people get wild. I mean, they really do.
People suck sometimes.
They
right?
really do.
Over
I mean,
a piece of money.
That's a great way to put it. But it's also, you know, for me, it's like I've got to have I don't care if it's $200. I don't care how much it is. Like I've got to have a contract in place. And what I do, I think my contract's like 4 pages now because people suck. And,
There's a reason why this is in here.
I've got like a running list on my phone of like things that come up, and I'm like, I need to add that. I need to add that. And I mean, as much as it does suck, I mean, it's great to be upfront with people. And in the very beginning, like set those standards for yourself. Like, I'm not going to answer the phone after 7. That's what time our office closes. I need to distance myself. If it's an emergency, 911 is probably the best place to go, you know, because there's no construction emergency.
That's right.
I mean, and if the house is on fire, 911 is the first place you need to call anyways, right? So I always try to remember that and set that tone for my client. As in, like, I'm in charge. Like, this is my company. You've hired us. This is what we do. This is our protocol, and this is how we operate. So, and it's never always going to work out. But I think at least setting those standards. Same thing with like collecting payments and stuff. I mean, it's about developing the trust. I mean, just as much as they may not trust you to give you money up front, I don't trust you to pay me when I do the work and have the, you know. So it's just about that communication on the front end.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because when I first started this business, we had to have a deposit. I didn't have a choice. I didn't have a credit score. I didn't have mommy and daddy's money. I had to go out here and hustle and grind and go get it. And that's what I did. I was fortunate enough to be blessed with some really, and I still am, some great people that's, you know, become, not only started out as customers, but became friends. And will be lifelong friends. But now, so this year I've taken a different approach, because I tell you what's happened, and I'm on the fence about this, so I want to get some feedback from you, and just let me know what your take is on it. But I don't take deposits anymore unless it's this gigantic job that we can't finance. But we're doing $40,000, $50,000 projects right now, and we're putting all the money up front. I see the liability, but the stress behind taking a deposit, especially in the industry that I'm in, of, hey, where are you at? Well, it rained 3 days last week, which set us back on, and so forth and so on. So my goal this year, going into this year, was to eliminate as much stress as possible. That was one of the stress factors that I found, was when I took a deposit, I was at their mercy.
So I go back and forth, but I mean, in the economy that we're in right now, I've never had so many open invoices on my jobs. I mean, or the duration of time that they've been open. I'm going like 3 and 4 weeks without receiving payment, which has been the longest that I've gone. So I'm noticing like a shift, obviously, in the economy. So for me, I take 10% just to get on my schedule. It could be three months out, whatever it is.
That's not too awful bad. Yeah.
It's not. And if it's a big project, $120,000, whatever it is, I mean, you spend office time getting that paperwork together,
sure.
right? And I've had people in the past who do all this paperwork, we sign a contract, and then they're like, oh, sorry, we don't want to do this project anymore. Well, they have no skin in the game, but I've got all these hours of work invested.
That makes sense.
And it's like, is it really worth it for me to take them to court to collect whatever's on my, at the end of the day, no, nobody wants to do that, sure. Right? So what I always tell myself is, it's not my responsibility to fund someone's project. We are not a bank. We are, just because you woke up this morning and said, I want to do a $50,000 masonry project, does not mean I need to have cash flow in my business account to fund that.
Sure.
And so I see red flags with what you're doing, because you got a lot of risk out there. I mean, if those people didn't pay, how long would you be able to sustain your business?
We just had that conversation, Philip. We just took a big hit on some.
Yeah.
We won't go into that right now because I'm really emotional about it, and I'll probably say some things that I shouldn't. But it ultimately was the decision that I made not to put some things in place and kind of, because we know this, Philip. Before you knew this, I knew, hey, this is where we're at, this is what we're doing, and this is how it's going to go. Yeah. I've gotten a little bit softer over the years. I've tried to, though, because I feel like I was a little rough around the edges, a lot rough around the edges. So I see bullshit a mile away. Yeah. So it's hard for me to refrain from telling you I see bullshit. Yeah. And when it shouldn't even matter, but I'm going to call you out on it. Yeah. Whoever you are. Yeah.
Well, and the good thing, Chris, is you're able to extend your contract a little bit longer. You're able to add something to the contract now.
Oh man! So, I mean, that's tough, man. But for what I would recommend is if it's a big project and they're putting down 25%, which could be $20,000. Instead of the worst thing in business is to rob Peter to pay Paul on your cash flow.
Sucks.
So put that money into like a separate escrow account. Don't cash it until you need to buy material or you're going to be on the job that day, right? But at least they have the good faith of like, they have my check. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like, everybody's keeping each other honest. That's what I like to tell people. Like, why don't you meet me in the middle here? We're going to keep both of us honest. And it's just, at the end of the day, if you sell your jobs at a right profit, you should be able to get at least halfway through the job, and then everything else would be cash flow for you. But up front, it would be the material.
And that's how it works. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. You seem like you've been doing this for a little while, Lauren.
I mean, I've been screwed just like you have, man. I mean, it's hard, but there's no way I would risk my family's livelihood for somebody not paying their bill. And if it's expensive like that, that's exactly what it would do. Yeah.
I like it. I'll take that with me. Yeah. Maybe it's worth a little bit more stress to make and I'm not stressed now. This is why we're not going to go into that. I'll keep this all about me. This is what I really want to know how you do is balance life and work and personal. And do you have kids?
No, I don't. You don't? Okay, that's probably one good way I do it. So my boyfriend Drew, which he's my 60% partner in the roofing company, he probably says that I don't. We've made a rule lately that at 8:00 everything shuts down. Like, because him and I work together all day long, and then we come home, I'm working, he's working. It never goes away. So finally, it started to weigh on us a little bit, and so we made a rule that 8:00 is like, we turn it off, we make dinner, we talk about anything besides what we do for a living. It's whatever else. So that's helped. Also, I love football. So for the last few years, I've had guys working every Saturday, and it was like when we had 12 o'clock games, I'm getting phone calls of like, we need this material, we need that. And I'm like, look, guys, if you want to work Saturday, that's fine. But when football season comes, don't call me.
Don't
You're on
call
your
my
own.
phone.
Like, go buy
Yeah.
your material. You're gonna have to go pick it up. So I do that because that's my favorite time of the year. And so I get, a couple months of, okay, like Saturdays are my day, but I think as a business owner, like, you work every day essentially. Like whether it's Sunday, I spend a few hours because my phone's not ringing, but I spend a few hours getting schedules ready for the following week, which I try to do all that like from Monday and Tuesday on Fridays, and then kind of work my way Sunday for the rest of the week. It's a little harder with the roofing where it's got rain, which I know that's a big factor for you. Everything's so many moving parts.
Yep.
But I would say, like, you just have to, like, what I tell myself is I'm never going to get everything finished, ever. I mean, there's always going to be something I could be doing, something to come back to. Pick what's the most important at that moment. When your time runs out that you set, maybe you say 7:00 is safe for your family. When that time comes, like you're done. The rest can wait for tomorrow. And just try to manage your time as in, it'll take me an hour to do this. This is super important. And just try to manage it that way. But there's always going to be things that come up where you're like, I ran out of time and I have to get this done. But you just have to try to take some time, because at first you're super into it, you're hustling and you're
Ambitious
just but then it starts to weigh on you, your family and everything, and it's super important to get some R&R for sure.
For sure. Sundays are typically the podcast, and I've got a 16-month-old that I parent by myself too. So Sundays are clean the house after he's completely jumped off chandeliers and he can't even walk. And every day it's continuous owning a business. It just is. It's nonstop. I think it started to balance out. How long have you been in business, Lauren?
Oh my God, I think it's like 2.5 years, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the roofing was last September, so we're at our 1 year right now.
Nice.
Yeah. So we're really a few years with everything, so to speak. But yeah, I get it. Time management, it sucks. We say we quit. We don't want to do 9 to 5. Instead, we work, 7 days a week, 365.
28 hours a day.
Yeah, 28 hours a day. Yeah, that is true.
That's crazy. So you started, it was tough enough for me to get one going. I think it'd be easier now that I've been in it we're going on 4 years.
Yeah.
But to prioritize just a setup and prioritizing the steps for starting a business and maintaining a successful business.
Yeah, so for me, I'm pretty detail-oriented type of person, and I love like charts, to-do lists. Like that's kind of my thing. I ride around all day with like a little notepad next to me, when people call, things like that. But for me, it's all about communication with a customer. Like there's things on the back end that you need to do that no one ever notices. But I think setting up first, like how am I going to communicate? Like what's our company standard of how we communicate with our clients? And that was kind of the first thing that I like to touch on. But that's an ever-changing thing too. When I finish jobs, I usually ask, like I send customers like a questionnaire, and it's like, what do you wish we would have done better? Or like, what are some, suggestions or things like that you can make? And so I've got like a spreadsheet that has all of those on there.
Nice.
And it has their responses. And then when we kind of figure out like a strategy to tackle those problems or things that we can improve on, I just kind of put like a check mark by it. And that's kind of like what we go off of. I know it sounds really weird.
It's almost like the law of attraction type stuff. Write it down and see if it'll manifest.
I just keep a big list with me every day and just write it. And here lately, like being organized. So I recently gave my work phone to my office girl, and it's been great because it's basically normal office hours, right? Everyone had that number. And I always tell my customers, like, look, like when you refer me, like say this is like Lauren's office phone, like refer me. She takes the leads, and I get so much done because I'm not on the job site, like answering future clients.
Sure.
And especially right now, it's important because my leads are getting less. I'm sure like we're all noticing that. We're getting ready to go into the holiday season. I feel like we're getting ready to go into a recession. Your leads are going to be less. So I think it's really important, the ones that you get, you need to be equipped and prepared to sell that job.
Are you an aggressive salesperson?
No, not really. I mean, there's a lot of people who make fun of me when I go to their job because they're like, "Oh, well, you're the only one that told me I don't need to replace my roof." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're fine. Like you know, there's no need to spend that money right now. Like go do that." And then I leave and I'm like, "God, I'm the shittiest salesperson there ever lived."
No, I do the same.
I'm not going to sell anything today, you know. So, no, I definitely would say I'm the opposite.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm not going to go in and sell somebody something that they don't need. It's just, you know, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've done this a couple of times, and sometimes I'm impulsive and do things, and I try to watch what I do now. But have you ever terminated a contract with a customer, and why, if you have, and what was the breaking point? Yes.
So, and this wasn't too long ago, actually, and this was my first. You know, it goes back to the girls in construction type deal. It was a really like sexist comments being made to myself and to my guys that were working for me. They're like, the customer was talking about how they wish I was a male. I mean, just things like that. And then it got to the point where, you know, they were calling my office and just being rude to the girls in my office, but always nice to my guys on the job site. And so at that point, I was like, this has everything to do with, you know, what we talked about. And you know, also lack of payments on things. I mean, we would go round and round for months about this is what's due, and everyone agreed upon it. And then when it's time to be due, it's like, we don't like all of, you know, and it just got to the point where that was every week. Like, they would be so happy with everything, and then we get to the pay and it's like, no, sorry, we're not happy anymore, you know. But it was really the comments for me, like, if you want to talk bad about me, that's one thing, but to call my office staff and be rude to them and talk in that manner, I just don't. I just can't put up with that.
Yep.
And I want to show that my employees that, like, I'm here for you. It's not about the money. Absolutely.
Yep.
And so that was the big thing for me was the comments being made, and it's just kind of like, look, like, I'm clearly not the person for you with the things being said. And it was always denied of like, I didn't say that. And I'm like, I've got 15 people that are telling me the same thing, you know, and it's just like, I'm not going to go back and forth with you and argue about it.
Energy doesn't lie either, Lauren. I'm sure you knew that before you ever even asked him. Sure.
It got to the point where I was treated so horribly that I didn't even want to go to the job site anymore.
Wow.
And I was just like, I can't wake up every day and try to make somebody happy. And I've never wanted to be like a quitter and say, I'm going to walk away on this. But it just got to the point where I was just like, I can't do this to my mental state. And I can't let my employees keep taking hits like this either. They don't deserve it.
Yep. I'm big on taking up for our employees. I remember one job in particular, and maybe I'll just jump to conclusions, but I feel like, you know, the guys that we have in the field are doing their best, and some people are just, you just can't make them happy.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you do or how above and beyond you go. Some people aren't just, they're just not happy. But as far as our guys are concerned, and I've dealt with this a couple of times where they're bad mouthing or knocking these guys over here, and I'm like, hold up, you got the right one, mister.
Yeah.
So.
No, I totally agree. And if it comes to the point where it's like, look, if this isn't up to your standards, like, this is what we do. If you don't like it, we just won't, you know, we'll just walk away now. We won't take any money. I mean, that's just where you lose in business, right? And it's just kind of like, still do right by them, but just know when you need to walk away.
And you keep your peace of mind.
Yeah.
I think, and that's what's really important for me today, is just peace of mind and not being stressed out.
And you know, you've got other clients who love what you do.
Yep.
And you're going to go where you're appreciated. And that's kind of where I got to.
Lauren, is there something we haven't covered that you'd like to talk about?
Let's see. So maybe just a few things. this is kind of more for like maybe you might get some good insight from this, but kind of something I've been trying to do to save my time. I know that I think I've got a blog coming out about this, but there's a lot of times like a typical quote, right, could take you 4 hours. Drive to the person's house, talk to them, be friends with them, type up an estimate, whatever. Either go back and meet them or follow up with a phone call. So I had learned, I calculate my leads that I get, where they come from, and then I calculate, if they were sold or not. And so when I go through like a breakdown of percentage and how many times those quotes cost me that I did not get, I mean, I could pay for someone's salary, right?
Yep.
And so what I've been doing lately is I've been asking the clients to send me it's a questionnaire. So when you call in, it basically asks you, like, what's your scope of work? What's your time frame? Would you be wanting to send me photos of your project? Or, like, maybe inspiration photos of, like, what you want, and then pictures of your space that you currently have. And then at that point, once they send that information over, it takes them to my calendar so they can pick out a 15-minute phone conversation. And so at that point, we jump on a call. I've got all their photos. I've kind of wrote some notes down myself, and I can give them a budget range on the phone. And that's the free estimate that I offer in the construction side of things. And it's basically like, my average whatever costs between $15,000 and $20,000, unless we come up with issues. And they could be on the other line saying, I was thinking this would be $4,000. Well, we just saved everybody some time, right? I mean, we saved ourselves 3 hours of realizing that. But I've also been charging for, if you want like a detailed breakdown of that price, or if you want a site visit, depending on the size of the project, I've been charging for those. And the reason I do it is because you can take my itemized bid or what have you, or a plan design especially, but you can go give that to any contractor in town and they're going to say, I'll match that, or I'll do it for $200 cheap, whatever. Or you can win the client over with your sales and them liking you. But at the end of the day, like, you're providing them with all that equipment that they don't know. Like, they don't know what a deck takes to be built. They don't know the material that goes into it, all the things. So if you're providing them with that to easily get a price from other people, like, you need to be paid for it. And
I agree.
That's just,
I've been back and forth. I'm glad you said it.
Yeah.
Philip, you and I have discussed this, and you're right. We can pay somebody's salary for the time and the money that's spent each year going out and doing estimates. I love that idea.
Yeah. I mean, technology is there. I mean, people use their phones, I just tell them the easiest way. If you want to text me photos of your space, I don't care how I receive them. But I mean, we can all respect each other's time.
For sure.
I mean, nobody wants to wait for a contractor to show up to their house, or get 3 people to show up and then take a week to hear from them, or whatever the story is. I mean, if we can be the first ones that say, here over the phone, this is a $12,000, $15,000 project that we're looking at.
Here's your price range.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're the first person, maybe the only person, honestly, in this business that even gives them a quote. So they're automatically going to call you back. Yeah. Even if you're higher, I've learned that half the time the other people that they've contacted aren't responding, aren't giving them pricing, whatever. They've wasted time, and they're just like, I just need this done. So I'm going to call you back now, even though your price might have been more. You're the only person that's even answered the phone for me.
We've sold more projects being higher because we know what we're talking about. And I think that you're probably, just by talking to you, probably more coordinated and organized than I am when it comes to doing an estimate. And its wording is so important to me. When Philip came on, he didn't know a lot of the terminologies that we use, but he was able to come in and catch on real quick. And that was one of the things that I'd mentioned. I said, listen, wording is everything, not only from the being liable part of it, the liability part of it, but because our estimates are a work order, right? So whenever I go and do an estimate, it's itemized out from start to finish, to every measurement, to everything.
Yeah.
And then I'll give it to our guys in the field so they can check this off. And once they do that, we know that that particular job has been done accordingly. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all about time, but as an owner, you really need to know your numbers. Like, keeping track of your past jobs and saying, we lost 5% on this one, or we gained this, like, okay, why? And then dissect it and know your numbers for moving forward, doing those phone conversations, if you do quote that in that way. Because at the end of the day, I mean, you can sit there and be buddies and say, oh, they need to see me in person to like me. No, they don't. They don't care.
They don't get two rats tail.
Just figure out if they're looking at best price. If it's best price, I mean, probably the first thing you say is, look, I'm probably not going to be the cheapest in town. So if you're looking for a price only, this probably doesn't need to go any further, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're, no matter what business it is, whether it's construction or web design, you've got to pre-qualify your
figure out their motive
before you waste your time.
We were talking about this, Phil. Like
we've been talking about it all year.
Yeah, and I think that this is just confirmation for me, Lauren. I really appreciate you sharing that with me, and I'll probably reach out to you from time to time.
Of course,
be like, hey, if you don't mind.
I'm getting ready to go to a big conference in Denver on Tuesday that talks all about this.
Nice.
And just like working on sales and things like that. I'll have to send you a link to the group that I'm in. They're just like we just practice sales together. Nice. I mean, it's like throughout the country. And I think right now sales are super important because you're not going to get as many leads. You're not going to get as many people spending as much money as we had. I mean, let's face it, 2020 was easy. I mean, you just had to show up. You're making money, right? It's getting ready to be less and less. So the people who can sell are going to be the ones that survive the business.
And you've got to know, and sorry, and I was going to say, and you've got to know when you're speaking to a high value client or potential client.
I mean, if their house is worth $100,000 and they're talking about a $50,000 project, I mean, ethically, it doesn't make sense. They're never going to gain the equity in their home. And so that's also us as professionals as being the educator. I mean, any client can go and look on house.com or Pinterest and say, I love this. But like, okay, for where you are and what your house is or whatever, to get value, this is what you really need to spend. And here's some projects that we've done that are that costs, and
always have something to reference back to.
But educating them for sure. I mean, my last thing is that market hard. Like I'm definitely putting my marketing money out right now. Where we're going into like winter, I try to market when I'm busy. That way I can fill up my schedule. I know a lot of contractors, it's feast or famine, but it's because when they're busy, they blow off people and they're like, sorry, we don't have time for you, whatever. Well, now's the time to build your business. When you're doing work, it's less stress to sell and you can pick your client, but you still need to build your schedule to ensure your workers, hey, we're booked up for 8 months. That's perfect. That's great job security. They're not looking for anywhere else to go.
What do you guys do in the wintertime?
God, we roof when it snows, man. I swear, like
I get it.
I keep thinking like, here it comes. Here's cold weather, but then it's like, nope. My boyfriend Drew owns a plow business too, so I shovel sidewalks 3 o'clock in the morning. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's voluntary. But
Drew doesn't pay you. Come out of your pocket, Drew.
Oh Lord, he puts up with me, so that's all he needs. But so we pretty much do. I try to also, not to say give discounts, but if people call me with basement remodels, things that are inside, I'm like, hey, look, would you like to wait till November? Like I can give you 5% off. We're going to be slow. I want to fill up my schedule, help my guys out, make sure that you're staying busy. So that's something else that I try to do on the construction side. The roofing, fortunately, I mean, it really doesn't stop. So that stays good. And I've got 3 or 4 flips that I can put some of my guys on if we start getting slow. But I've just noticed a decrease in leads, but not really. We've got plenty of work to keep us going for January, February.
And that's where we're at too. I think I mentioned something to you, Philip, a couple of months ago about it just didn't feel like the phone was ringing as much as it used to. And we've got 2 that ring consistently. But like 2020, I couldn't keep up.
Oh, I mean, I'd have like 20 voicemails a day and I couldn't even get back to them.
And now, but so this is what I take into consideration too. So I've been in business for a little bit longer, so I'm able to manage things and not because I was bad about procrastinating paperwork more than anything.
I hate paperwork too. Oh my God, it's the worst.
But as we continue to, for me, as I continue to, progress through this journey, like stuff just starts to become almost second nature almost. And I'm,
I mean, delegating for me has been, I'm such a control freak.
Me too.
I have no idea. And I don't think anyone's ever going to do anything the way I do it or as good as or whatever. But delegate will save your life.
I love everything that you've shared with me today. Like, it makes so much sense.
It's hard to let go, man, but you got to do it. You just have to. And what I tell, I got some advice about this. I love to just talk to people about how they do things, but make a list of the things you hate the most and figure out if the person that you are. So I have like my people that work with me do like assessments, and it tells me like what their strong suits are. It's basically just like this huge questionnaire that says, oh, these people are really good with organization or, like whatever. So I try to find the things I hate the most and then figure out what they're good at. And then I delegate those things as I can, and kind of start from there. I mean, if it was up to me, I'd just be on the job site all day, just supervise. That's what I love to do. Yeah. But unfortunately, like, we can't do that. But
this has been great, Lauren. I really appreciate
Thanks
you
for
coming
having
out.
me. Yeah.
No, this has been great. I've gotten so much feedback from you that I can implement moving forward.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to take suggestions. I'd like to think that I know it all, but I don't.
We're always going to grow. I mean, we're always going to, as business owners, no matter what, like, it's just going to be different levels of people that we're growing from. But I mean, if you just keep growing, and keep learning, that's the thing. It's like, you can sit there and say, oh, I sell every job I go to. Well, you might still need some sales training. I mean, there's always something else you can learn. So I try to remember that.
Yeah, we went one last thing. As far as the sales, I was in 2020. I think Philip tracked me at 49%. I'm thinking I'm killing the game.
It was really high. Yeah. I remember that.
And now it's like 20.
Yeah.
And that's still really good. I think the national
really
average
good.
is 16% closing rate, 18%,
Something like that.
Yeah. See, I'm a lot lower than I used to be, but it's because we've learned to pick our clients. We're not just jumping at everything we have. I'm like right at 22% right now, but
there's a lot less stress that's came
absolutely
with that 22% as opposed to
I've raised my prices and I've learned what I need to create, keep my business going and timelines too. I mean, that questionnaire that we talked about is real important, but it'll kick your people away to where you have you can focus more attention on the people who are your clients or who you want to be your clients.
I love it. Well, again, Lauren, thank you so much for coming out.
Yeah, thank you guys.
I'd love to sit down with you. We tell all our guests, at some point, maybe 6 months, a year from now, if you want to come back and kind of reevaluate what's went on in the last year. And
I'm sure we'll all have a bunch of changes.
Yeah, we always do.
Yeah. So, that sounds great.
All right, wonderful.
Awesome. Thanks, Lauren.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
This has been the Download Success Podcast at downloadmysuccess.com. Go like, share, and subscribe today. For more information about Lauren Geiger, please visit her and her company on Facebook at Bluegrass Builders and Remodel. New episodes every Tuesday.